Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
Hello and welcome to our feature match today. It's Green-White Tokens versus Abzan Control. Now you might be wondering, what is Abzan Control? Well, this is a fairly new list that I saw at my local game store, and I really liked it and I really wanted to get it on video, and luckily I did. So the Green-White Tokens player is on the play. The Abzan player had to mulligan to 6 and kept the scries. And so here's a hissing quagmire. So the thing about the Abzan control list, it does have a lot of tap lands. It runs a full play set of both hissing quagmire and shambling vent, so it stays on color without it being too painful. So the Green-White Tokens has Sylvan Advocate, which is really great for the early game, but the Abzan player has a response with Grasp of Darkness. And let's see if the Green-White Token player has a Taunt 3 play, which ideally would be, Nissa right there, which is probably going to bring a plant along for the ride. And then it's going to go back to the Abzan player's turn. And so right there, as I was talking about, there's a lot of tap lands, but as you can see with Sylvan Advocate, there's a very good reason to play all these man lands. So with the active Sylvan Advocate, all these lands that are kind of clunky in the beginning of the game become really threatening and amazing in the later parts of the game. So the Tokens player is considering what he can do. The Green-White token list has very little removal. They run from 2 to 4 Declaration in stones. But it looks like he decides to just play his own Silver Advocate and minus Nissa, so it's bigger than the Sylvan. And Jamoka's Command. Now, that is technically a removal spell, as it pumps the creatures and takes care of the other one. And now we got a not active Sylvan Advocate that is as huge as it is if it was active. So that thing's probably going to need to be taken care of as soon as possible. And then there's a 1-2 plant. And here's Ultimate Price. Again, I can't say this enough. I really like Ultimate Price in this meta. Well, maybe not meta, but in this standard format right now. It kills the best things. It kills a lot of great stuff, but it also doesn't kill a lot of stuff either. And with Shadows over Innistrad, there wasn't a lot of great addition of colored creatures, but Eldritch Moon has a lot of, well, mainly white creatures that are going to be coming up. So again, in Abzan, reason to be in these colors is Anguish Unmaking. In this format, you do need a plentiful amount of answers to Planeswalkers. And here's Archangel Avacyn being flashed in at end step. And now the Tokens player is going to be able to swing in for 5. Now that's a lot of damage. Now, that's 3 things that the control player needs to take care of, and what better than a sweeper? Now, a lot of control decks, if they're in black, run the full playset of Languish because of this specific reason. It takes care of a lot of stuff, and if you are able to deploy it on turn 4, when your opponent has just played all this stuff, it is amazing. And so the token player has an empty board, so does the control player. And let's see what he'll do to rebuild. So first it's going to be a Nissa. And again, another plant. As always, when a Planeswalker is on the board, you want to remove it because it is free value as long as it's on the board. Okay, so here's a activation, shambling vent, and an attack, and so it's fairly fairly free attack. It'll gain the control player some life and cause the token player to get rid of a plant, which is relevant. You do not want token decks to accumulate tokens because their deck is full of anthems, as with Nissa and Gideon. So here's a great reason to be in the Abzan colors is Painful Truce. With all 3 colors, green, white, black, you're able to draw 3 cards for 3 mana. You do lose 3 life, but with the inclusion of Shabbling Vet in the deck, you do gain life. Okay, so the control player is able to refill their hand, potentially, hopefully, trying to draw into an answer to Nissa. So the token player is just going to make another plant. Has access to quite a bit of mana. A Secure the Waste would be pretty bad. So here's the answer that he was searching for. Probably drew it off the Painful Truce. Anguish Unmaking again. Again, he is taking a lot of damage. Luckily, he's been able to take control of the board. But he's at 7 life right now. And if a threat lands, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. And he's going to keep digging to make sure that even if a threat does hit the board, that he's going to have an answer for it. Going down to 4 life. So here's a pseudo answer. It's an active Servant Advocate, and it's just big enough to cause the token player to know that he's going to keep swinging in with those mana lands and the Advocate and just be able to handle whatever he puts out anyway. So this is game 2. The control player, again, mulligans down to 6 and scries to the bottom. So here is the turn 1 of the Nissa. Now, this is, again, a really great turn 1 play because you could either find the land that you need or a threat. And it looks like he's going to be picking up Nissa. So turn 3 is spoken for. And as with all control decks, mostly turn 1 and turn 2, they might not have a play. Turn 1, definitely, they usually don't because they have tap lands, so the mana is correct. So here's a Hingo Backwalker. Hingo Backwalker, again, is a really annoying threat. You either have to exile it and it's okay, or be forced to kill it because it's so massive, and then you have to deal with all these flying annoyances. So it looks like the token player decides to just minus Nissa to get in the quick damage. As you saw in the first game, the control player did do a lot of damage to themselves to take care of the threats on board. So if you bring them down to a low enough life total, maybe you could just eke out enough damage that all those answers become, irrelevant, unusable. So here's a Servant Advocate, which is great because it's just big enough to block that Hingo Backwalker. And it's going to save the control player some points of damage, at least for a turn, as I would assume that the token player is going to pump it up at the end of the control player's turn. And here's the Nissa Vespertile, which is going to fetch up a land. She is a long ways off from being flipped into a Planeswalker, and quite honestly, the tokens player doesn't want that with a Voice of Zendikar Nissa on board. So here's an Anguish Unmaking, exiling the Hingo Backwalker, so no tokens. It does cause the control player to lose 3 life. And here is an attack at Nissa, Voice of Zendikar. And it looks like it is traded off with Nissa Vespertile. So it looks like he's valuing the active Planeswalker more than the creature, which is respectable. It's understandable, as you want Nissa to keep pumping out tokens and potentially pump up the team. And here's another Hingleback Walker, which is going to require another answer, potentially exiling. So the thing with control decks, sometimes you could just outpace them because you keep deploying threat after threat after threat, and then they end up not having an answer. But here's a direct answer for Planeswalkers in Ruinous Path. So it's going to take away the pseudo card advantage of having a Planeswalker to be able to pump out these tokens. And now he's going to be able to swing in for 2. Because as the tokens player, you don't want to be trading these off quite yet, especially the plant, because another Nissa or Gideon emblem can actually turn it into an attacker. And you could always make the Hangleback Walker big enough to kill the Advocate before it bites the dust and makes more tokens. So here's a Hangleback Walker for 2. And it's just big enough, and there's enough mana on board that it could pump the other Hangleback Walker. Oh, here's the Declaration Stone, which is a perfect answer, as it's going to exile both of the Hangleback Walkers. It's going to give the tokens player some clues, but it's not as good as having 2 Hangleback Walkers. And here's another attack for 2 with the control player. And here's a play you don't usually see often, a face-up Den Protector. Now, being able to get in that damage is perfect. Like, you might be able to get something back, but that immediate value of being able to swing in uncontested through the 0/1 token each turn is great. So it looked like the tokens player was gonna cast something off of what he drew from the clue, but decided not to. So considering that it didn't drop down a Planeswalker, it's probably another Nissa Password Seal, and he played his land prior, so he wouldn't have been able to flip it. So he wisely chooses it to keep it in hand until he can. So here's an attack for 4. Of course, the Den Protector being unblockable because the plant token is a 0/1, and only creatures equal to Den Protector's power can block it. And you don't really want to give a free trade-off of that token with the Sylvan Advocate just yet. So it was a Nissa Password Seal. So the forest is going to be searched up. And it's going to be played. So she will trigger. And it looks like the control player has an Anguish Unmaking to kill her before she could become a Planeswalker. And here's a Declaration of Stone for the Sylvan Advocate, which of the two is the most threatening, as it's going to become even bigger and pump up the mana lands. So it's an attack for 2, which the token player has to take. Unfortunately, cannot by Den Protector. And it looks like the control player just passed the turn. Probably has another instant speed answer, maybe another Anguish Unmaking or a ultimate price, maybe a Grasp of Darkness. And so here's a Gideon, and looks like he's going to 0 to make a guy, and he has a response with Hallowed Moonlight, which stops the token from entering in and allows the control player to draw a card. And it looks like the tokens player has another play. No, I guess not. So there's the ultimate price from the control player. So this way it clears the path for both Den Protector and an animated land to come in and kill Gideon. So Gideon down, and because of the Shambling Vent, the control player was able to gain some 2 life. So life gain is always great, especially in this Abzan list, as you're going to be doing a lot of damage to yourself with unmakings and painful truths. So here's another Gideon, and it looks like there's no Hollowed Moonlight this time. He gets the token and passes the turn. So I would assume... So here's a Painful Truce. Again, full retail, 3 life. And again, control player trying to join an answer to the Gideon, a Ruinous Path, and Anguish Unmaking. So it doesn't look like he had a direct answer for the Planeswalker, but here's an attack from the Den Protector. Since the Night Ally is a 2/2, it can block Den Protector. So the token player is going to activate Westfall Abbey, lose a life, and make a 1/1 cleric. So he's not down on creatures, although obviously a 2/2 is better than a 1/1. But precariously, he's at 9 life. But here's Gideon swinging in. The control player doesn't want to lose his advocate, so he takes the damage. So it's 6-9. This is a veritable race. It's really close. If the control player is able to find an answer to Gideon, it's going to end up being really bad for the tokens player. I would assume they're going to be taking 1 life each turn, because they're going to keep making cleric tokens off of Westfall Abbey. So here's a huge attack. Both are active. So the Silver Advocate's popping up the Shambling Vent, and the Silver Advocate is a 4/5. And also Shambling Vent is also a 4/5. I found that to be like kind of cute, that they're both 2/3s that turn into 4/5s. It's like they were made for each other. And so here are the cleric tokens. It's the cost of 1 life. And so either one going through to Gideon would cause Gideon to go down to 1, which was not very great. So the tokens player decides to chump both so that Gideon can stay at 5 loyalty, potentially make an emblem, and proceed from there. But the control player did gain a lot of life off of that, and he dropped a Morph, which, surprise, surprise, is probably Den Protector. So he's going to have a kill spell for that Gideon, if he so chooses. So he decides to make a Knight off of Gideon, and here's a Hangerback Walker for 2. And it doesn't look like the token player has any other plays. So the control player can activate Den Protector, get back an Unmaking, and get rid of Gideon. Not 100% sure how the control player wants to handle this. He could always get a Painful Truce and try to dig through his deck that way. It looks like he goes for the direct route and gets a Anguish Unmaking. Like making sure that they got what's revealed in hand. And so he was an attack first at the token player. So now Den Protector can't be blocked, so that's a free 3 damage, and Advocate has to be blocked because it's really big, and you don't want to be taking a hit off that. So it looks like before damage, the control player is going to cast Hollowed Moonlight, which is going to stop the tokens from coming in and draw another card. So that was a bit of a bait with the attack with the Sylvan Advocate, you would assume that the block with the Hangleback Walker is kind of free, because you know they have an English on making anyway, that they're going to kill the Hangleback Walker before you got the tokens. But considering that the control player had a Hollowed Moonlight in hand, he had many ways to deal with that Hangleback Walker without having to use a very useful kill spell in English Stone Making. So the token player makes an Gideon Emblem and just passes the turn. So now we do have a 3/3 Knight Ally token on the token player side, and this is a pretty big attack. It's not exactly lethal, it's off by 1, but you don't want to be going down to 1. So let's see if the token player has any plays. So here's a Secure the Waste, which looks good, and I'm not even gonna count. It's Secure the Waste for a lot. Is it 8? I think it's 8. Either way. So it looks like he's gonna do it in response to a tackle, so he could kill off these creatures and probably still have enough for Omendal. So he's considering the best way to block and still keep enough tokens, because with the Gideon Emblem in play, these are 2/2s, and being able to attack with 6 of these, probably 7, would mean the game, potentially. But it looks like he's going to trade the board for his board and end up with 4 warriors, which gets swept up in Languish. So that Omendal is not going to flip anytime soon. And an empty board is always in favor of the control player. So with the board clear, now is the time to English on making the Gideon, so nothing else ends up on the board. And she's going to pass the turn. Now again, the tokens player probably could have done that at end of turn, so that he had all these tokens that were pretty big, and then be able to activate Omendal and swing in for exactly lethal. But he had the English Unmaking in hand, so you don't want to waste all your resources on Omendal if you know it's going to die. So probably just a swing in with all these tokens might have been the game. So here's a Sorin, and it looks like the token player didn't draw anything. That Sorin's going to keep plussing, and he has the man lands, and with no interaction in hand, the tokens player concedes. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's a really cool Abzan deck. I'm actually a big fan of it. I built it myself, and I'm enjoying it. And the actually quite top tier deck of the format, green-white tokens, seemed fairly off balanced against it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Go ahead and like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you want to. If there's anything else you guys would like to see, go ahead and just again leave a comment. I read all the comments, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.